Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is number 3 of a series called How to Build a Culture, I guess. So we are on video number 3 of building a culture for whether or not you're working on a, fantasy or science fiction world, or if you're working within a historical, an actual world in this culture on this earth, or if you're working on a video game or on a movie. What type of things do you need to think about when you are building a culture? So we have gone over things like the shared history, traditions in food in the first video. In the second video we went over art, architecture, weather, and the weather, which includes the flora and the fauna. And then I'll admit that the weather was rather tacked on there. I'm sorry about that, but it was on there at the end. But we went over art, things like sculptures and painting and stuff. Though I do realize in hindsight that art could also be things like your tableware. You can consider that artistic, so your table and glassware can be artistic as well. So something to think about too. What are you eating off of? But today we are going to start with traditional and cultural dress. What are your people wearing? So when you are building a culture, what are they wearing? Now, what people wear, particularly in historical contexts, or if we're talking about fantasy concept, is going to really depend on what do they have available to them. So what are they growing out of the ground, and what type of animals are they herding? So if you are in America, what we had in America before DuPont, DuPont is such a can of worms. Before DuPont in America, because I try my best to stick to America, what we had was, we brought over was the wool. We brought over sheep. So we had a wool industry. Our wool industry has kind of... Thanks, DuPont. We had a wool industry, particularly in the northeastern United States. And in the southeastern United States, we had king cotton. And you're going, why are you calling it king cotton? Because cotton was king. That was, you were growing tobacco or you were growing cotton in the South. So we had cotton and we had wool. So what we had, those were the two major materials from growing in the ground and animals. Now what we also had was, because we also had a dairy farm tradition before we moved out west and we started having a large beef farm tradition, our dairy farm tradition would give us a small amount of leather, as well as if you were a farmer, you probably also kept pigs for meat, because pigs will have 25 piglet litters. And so when you see the movie Sing and she has all those little kids, that's actually accurate. Pigs have a little leather, so you could get pig leather out of that as well as meat. If you kept rabbits or you trapped rabbits, you could also have a lot of rabbit meat and rabbit fur. And also in America, we have this thing called the raccoon. And immigrants would come over and we would hunt the raccoon to make raccoon skin caps. We also used to have a lot of beavers, but like Europe, we kind of hunted our beavers to almost extinction to make top hats. And we also used fox fur, because we also had the American red fox here. So those were kind of the things that in America that we had to make clothes. So a lot of our cultural traditional American things are from the immigrants um, that we would wear. So they're really based in, you know, immigrant culture. So if you see a plaid shirt that is kind of based in Scottish immigrant culture, you know, that they brought that over here. I think one of the biggest contributions that America has had on, you know, worldwide or countrywide clothing trends is we had the gold rush. And during the gold rush, we noticed that cotton twill impregnated with indigo dye was a very long-lasting, durable material. And so we started to wear denim for, at first, it was hard jobs. It was your mining, it was your cattle driving, so cowboys. That only lasted about 20 years, honestly. And then, you know, it became, and farmers wore a lot of denim because twill is one of the strongest weaves known to man. And so we were wearing this indigo denim. The Levi jean was one of the first ones, and then there was Wrangler and other ones like that came up after Levi's. So that was our contribution to cultural dress here in America, was the denim pant. And eventually, past the 1950s, denims started to become less of a working class, you wear this because it's hardy and it will last a long time item. And by the 1980s, 1990s, between the 50s and there, in that 40 years, it became a fashion, everyday, everybody wears it type of item. Whether or not this is a good thing or not is up for debate, because denim, cotton denim, takes a lot of water to make. It's a very high, you know, thing. Now, so if you're working with a culture that grows, say, a lot of flax, you're going to have a lot of linen garments. If you are working with a culture who herds goats, and particular types of goats, or has camels, you're going to have garments made out of camel hair, mohair, or you're going to have it made out of goat hair, which is, you know, like cashmere. Cashmere goats are, that's goat hair. Rabbit fur, you can clip the rabbits and turn that into cloth, and that's into fibers and into thread and turn that into cloth. So that would be Angora rabbit if you're not, you know, killing the rabbit for meat and then skinning it and tanning it. And you can also have in places like South America, they had llamas and alpacas that they would use the llama fur and the alpaca fur. They would shear them like sheep and spin that into threads and into yarn, and they would use that to create weave cloth or knit cloth to make garments. And so your traditional costume is really going to depend on how warm do you need to be and what are the materials you have at hand, and, you know, what type of techniques have you come up with to embellish your garment. Do you use, you know, seeds and shells and things in your local environment to create beads? You know, are you making beads out of wood, or or have you discovered glass making and, you know, make little beads out of glass? Are you using embroidery? What are the motifs of your embroidery from the flora and fauna around you? Or are you using geometric shapes? Or have you discovered how to do what it's like lace or even tablet weaving to make trims? So are you like doing braiding trims, or are you, you manipulating your threads on bobbins to create these delicate patterns? Um, I, as a fashion kind of person who has studied fashion history, um, and I am talking about traditional cultural dress. I'm not talking about, the fashions that came later that were built upon what we would call traditional cultural dress. Having studied fashion history, most garments, the most basic garments, they're all T-shaped garments. So they're like your t-shirt type garment. They're all, so your kimono, your, most of your robes, if you look at African garments, a lot of them are also T-shaped. A lot of the basic foundational garments that everybody, like a tunic, a tunic in Russia and a tunic in India are going to be very, very similar in how they were constructed. What's going to differentiate them is what are the colors, A, and what are the motifs, and where is the embroidery or your ribbon banding? Where is it? Is it on the collar? Is it on the hems? Is it, is there any at all? Or is it, is the fabric itself? Because in the, in Asia and in the Middle East there, you would have silk. So you would have the silkworm. So your fabric, in Russia, you're wearing wool because you're cold, and in the winter, and you're gonna want wool, and you're gonna be wearing it a different weight of it in the summer because wool wicks very well, so it's going to keep you cool in the summer. So you're gonna have a heavyweight wool for the winter, and you're gonna have a lighter weight wool for the summer. But in India, you're wearing silk because that's what you have access to, or you're going to be wearing a very fine cotton because it's hotter, it's warmer, and your tunic, so if it's silk, it's going to be it's going to be a more shiny material depending on the weave. I mean, satin weave is kind of what was invented for silk. you know. And the quality of the material is going to be different because silk is a very, very, very long fiber in comparison to wool, or to, in cotton you have this plant fiber that's, automatically a spiral, and then you're spiraling it together, so you're creating ropes of cotton, but even then you want, say, Egyptian cotton over American cotton, because American cotton has been, grown to be hardier, but at the cost of the length of the fiber. But Egyptian cotton has very long fibers to ply together, so it will create a better thread, a better fiber, like silk. So what is your traditional and cultural dress? And then you can think about how did that evolve over time, if you want, using different variations of, looking at ways culture has forced, dress to change. Particularly if you're doing something in a European tradition, you might want to be looking on how dress changed over the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, from did we have, from having just robe-like garments, and then we started adding underskirts and petticoats, and we might have been adding padding, and then, you start adding cages, so you start adding these cages to underneath your garments to make them different skirt shapes. What the men, they were wearing longer coats and brilliant colors with lots of embroidery, and then this changed when, a certain guy decided it had to change, and, hasn't really changed much since. But, you can look at, what is the, type of forces, cultural forces at play, who's invading who's bringing their culture, what is the trade, what do they have available to them, what are the dyes available local in their area, are they using road, or are they using indigo type of thing, are they using beets, or are they using ruddy madder, which is a root that makes red things, whereas beets are, that's just excess vegetables. Are you using dyer's chamomile to make yellow, or are you using a Dyer's chamomile has yellow flowers, by the way. Roman and German chamomile have white flowers to make the tea, whereas Dyer's chamomile is not for tea, it's for dyeing. Or are you using onion skins, which almost everybody had available to them. So there is a lot of colors available to you, even from natural dyes. So think about your traditional and cultural dress. And here I have been talking about this for 15 minutes straight, because I love fashion just that much. So, you know, what do you have available to you? What cultural forces are at play at the time? You know, what type of supporting our garments are women wearing, because we have to have those. Is it kind of like a linen bag? Is it, stays made with ropes and, you're lacing them in? Have you moved on to whalebone or steel? Is it just around the waist, or does it cover your bust? If it covers your bust, it's going to do different things to your bust than if it just covers the waist. Does it go down to your hips? So you can have movements and everything like that to think about what are your people doing and where did their clothing come from. Okay, and in America, the immigrants, they were bringing their own cultural dress with them, and their own types of dress with them, and the people here who were trading among themselves would had access to leather and to cotton and to llama and alpaca type stuff as well, because they were trading among each other. There was stuff here before the immigrants. All right, so when you're traditional and cultural dress, also this is kind of also going to influence your manners and your way of talking. So we're going to talk about manners, and slang and accents hopefully in the next 5 minutes. So might go a little long so I can get all of this specifically. So your manners, okay? So what type of manners does your culture have? Now in the United States, because again, we are 50 moles in a trench coat, where you are is going to determine what is acceptable behavior. We have, what are laws versus what are social mores. So a social moray in America is no shirt, no shoes, no service. And you'll see signs about this. So, if you're not wearing a shirt and you're not wearing shoes, they're not going to, they're going to ask you to leave and put on some shoes and a shirt so that, while they do business with you. It's a social moray. It's one of those things. Why are you just wandering around in your shorts? Type of thing. Which, as a woman, like the whole thing about, guys can get away with that, and that's, why the no shirt thing is there, is for the guys, but for the girls, you're like, we always have to wear a shirt, we are not allowed to go topless in most places. So whether or not, you just pop in on somebody, and that's acceptable to go visit somebody without, an invitation, or whether or not you have to call ahead and make plans, is going to depend a lot on your culture. How socially relaxed is your culture? Are they socially relaxed in this one thing, and then they have another whole entire set of more formal manners regarding everything else? Like, is it okay to pop it type of thing? Utensils. Okay, so you got 3 utensils. Okay, I'm going to use some pencils here. So you have 3 utensils. Now in Europe, it was very common to have to eat with your fork and your spoon. You have your fork and your spoon, and you have your knife. And what you would do is you would trade hands when you didn't need. If you needed to cut something, you would take your knife and you put it in your dominant hand, and you would put your fork in your non-dominant hand and cut things that way. Well, in, you know, colonial manners, they didn't always decide to do that. Instead, they would keep the fork in their dominant hand and the knife in their non-dominant hand, and they would use, cut that way, and that way they could just keep eating without having to move your knife and your fork around and think about putting the knife on the edge of the plate and, things like that. So in your culture, you need to think about how are they holding their, not only what type of utensils are they using, or, if you're an Asian dominated culture, you're using chopsticks, and there's a whole bunch of, cultural traditions and things about how you hold your chopsticks. The Chinese and the Japanese and the Koreans use chopsticks in different ways. And then, is it polite to put it on top of the bowl? You don't, do you stick them in the rice or not? No, that's like for the dead or something like that. But how you hold and use your utensils and your manners, and do you keep your napkin in your shirt, or do you put it on your lap, or how does this all work? Those types of things. Even how you answer the phone can also be considered manners, or how you leave a message on an answering machine. That's manners. So think about please and thank yous, and how your culture goes about them, type of thing. What type of manners and mannerisms do people in your culture have? Some cultures talk with their hands, and some cultures don't. I'm very much talk with my hands type of person. So that type of thing. The other thing that also goes along with this, and will vary from region to region, even within what you would consider, a state, or what could be a small country here, is slang and accents. So I am from upstate New York, and I probably have a very upstate New York considered accent. Now, I have lived in San Francisco, and I have lived down south. So, my sister lived in Tennessee for a while. She came back, and my mother could hear the drawl in her voice because she'd been picking it up while she lived down there, even though my sister couldn't. And then she lost it within like a year or so. So what is your slang? In parts of America, you might say soda. In other parts, you might say pop. In other places, you say soda pop. And it's kind of like that, depending on where you live in America, it's going to depend on how you say pecan. So in the South, the pecan is a place where you go whiz. A pecan is the tree, the nut off the tree, and a pecan pie. The pecans are next to the pecans. Do you want a slice of this pecan pie? So even a singular word can be said differently depending on circumstances, how you say it, or even if you're 10 miles down the road from somebody else and you just happen to have a slightly different regional accent. So, and a lot of times slang comes from, things around you, things somebody says and suddenly it becomes popular, or, why is it called pop? Well, probably because it's carbonated and it goes pop, 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 but, or, things like that. So think about if you're coming up with different curse words, why would they have these curse words? What in their culture influences their curse words? Remember, in America and in Europe, a lot of our curse words are actually words that come from either the Protestant Christian or the Catholic Church. So a lot of times you're like, I don't want them to be saying, you can't be saying X, Y, and Z, because if you look into the origins of it, it's because it's from the Christian tradition, hell and goddamn and, things you can't say on TV. It's from the Christian Catholic tradition. So you have to come up with new types of cursing slang words, that will be more relevant to the culture you are creating or the culture that you are emulating in your books or your video game or your movie or whatever you're making. So 3 things to think about. And then we're going to go over for about 5 minutes because I want to talk about one more thing that you need to think about when you're thinking about your culture, and that is your bureaucracy, which again, I'm probably going to spell wrong. So your bureaucracy. And what do I mean by bureaucracy? What I mean is your government, and how much influence does your religion have on your government. So so we have like 3 or 4 different versions of government that we learn about in school. So is your government a monarchy? Is it ruled by a king? Or is it an oligarchy? Do you have 3 or 4 kings? So in, The Lord of the Rings, Aragorn becomes the king of Gondor, and Eomer is the king of the Rohan. That is a monarchy. So there is one person in charge, and they have their councils and things like that to help them out. But when then you move over into Narnia, you have, especially in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, what you have is an oligarchy. You have 2 kings and 2 queens. So, they are they're an oligarchy. They have shared the power between them. So do you have a monarchy, or do you have like a more representative government, like a republic, which is more like Roman and Athens, with a specific people can vote and talk in the Senate and then type of thing? Or do you have like a democracy where everybody's supposed to be able to vote and they vote for people to represent them, to talk about things, to create laws? Or are you working on more of a socialistic type of thing where people are working to you just have a very small group of people and they're all working together for the benefit of all, and there's really no, maybe you have a council or something, but there's really no definitive leader like you have in a democracy where you have like a president, or a republic like you have your Caesar. So you have like a group, a tribal council or a town council where people are coming, and there's no one leader that is in charge. It's just everybody's bringing their their things to work it out together, or something in between, or something else. How much influence does your religion have on your how your laws and the way things are done? Are you actually living in a theocracy, or is there somebody who claims to be a prophet of your god and giving out your your rules and laws and things because God told them to? So that's kind of like a once removed theocracy type of thing. Is God in charge, or is a man in charge type of thing? So how does this influence things? Or do you have more of is there a guild system? Is there a a separate type of trade system type of thing? And how is that governed and things like that? So that's going to influence how people in your life live, and how, who do they complain about? Is there taxes? How are the taxes made? Who's in charge of your currency? What type of currency do you have? Please remember that most currencies in the world today, especially in the Western world, are based upon what is called the thaler. And a thaler was a unit of silver from a specific mine in Eastern Europe that was considered the purest silver, and they had the most accurate weight measurements to be a thaler is worth this much, and this is the exact amount of a thaler of silver. And then that kind of got adopted by everybody who did trade in that area, and then was even brought over to America to become the dollar. Go figure. So, is your currency in base 6 or is it in base 10? Think about that too. Why is time in base 6 and currency in base 10? And it's all very confusing. But, time also tends to be determined by, governments and religious figures in governments. Like, where is the whole idea of where mean time was actually determined by the Roman Catholic Church until the Roman Catholic Church fell out of favor, and then it was finally moved to Greenwich type of thing. So your government, how much your religion and trade and merchants, and your patronage system of your government. Who's involved in your government? Do you have a system of nobles? Do you have corporate merchant oligarchs? Do you, or are you just a group of cooperative farmers type of thing? All of that is going to play into, your holy days, because the church determines your holy days, and the government can enforce those holy days, or they can't, by saying things have to be shut down on those days. That's why we have federal holidays here in America versus, there are holidays for almost every single day of the year, but in America we only have certain holidays where the schools are closed, the banks are closed, and, the government is supposed to also be closed, like state park or federal parks and things like that. Except our federal government seems to like to take vacations whenever they want. Very weird. So, all right. So when you are building a culture, we are now at 3 post-it notes. So we have things to think about are your shared history, your shared traditions, and your shared food. Think about your art, which can include, plates and forks and knives and things, but your art, so your paintings, your weaving, your sculptures, your photography, things like that. Your architecture, what are your buildings made out of? What do they look like? How sturdy are they? What type of embellishments do they have? And this can be determined by your weather. What type of weather events do you have? What's your flora and your fauna? What are your plants and your animals that live in this particular weather zone? I find it very interesting that, even mountains can have different zones as they go upwards, so different animals will live in different sections of the mountains, and some animals only live in these little tiny sections in the mountains, or there's only one lake where they can live, or like the devil's hole pupfish, there's one little area that the water is just perfect for them and they can't live anywhere else. So think about your little ecology and things like that. How do people react to the animals, and do they revere them? Do they not revere them? Do they just try to kill them? That type of thing. And then lastly, we want to talk about your dress. What type of clothes do you wear? What are they made out of? What colors are available in your area? What colors were available through trade? And what type of embellishments do they have? And, do you keep those type of embellishments over time? Did they mutate over time? That type of thing. What are people's manners? Taking your shoes off at the door, or do you leave your shoes on? Or what type of utensils do you use? How do you use your utensils? Please and thank yous, how you answer the phone, greetings, things like that. What is considered polite and impolite? Slang in accents, how do people talk? How are they taught to talk? Do they slur things? Do they drop letters? Do they, is there just a certain precise way that they move their mouth and tongue that are different than other people to create certain sounds? We have a lot of different ways of speaking across this world, and it's all down to how, we learn as children. How do we learn to make the tongue shapes and where we press our our tongue to the back of our teeth. You know, how much do we speak in our throat or not, okay? And then also thinking about bureaucracy. So your government, who is making the laws, who is enforcing the laws, and who, you know, what are different classes of people, how many people are in your society, so why do they actually need a king, or are they just like little random groups of cooperatives, you know, with maybe just a council or whatever to settle disputes. Those are things you need to think about when you're making a culture. And I'm sure there's lots of other things too that fall under these things that, you know, you will stumble upon, like education and things like that, as you're trying to build your culture. But these are some good, you know, starting places that will get you thinking about your culture and how to make your culture you know, interesting and distinct and you know, different from other things around it. And you know, this is also going to depend on how much you love world building. So sometimes you might not need all this right there, right that minute, and you might not need to think about it until like you're 3/4 of the way through the story, and you're like, oh, maybe I should think, you know, what is going on there? But sometimes you just might want to think about the very basics of the government, the dress, and you know, manners. That, or you know, or if you're what type of castles do you have? You know, do you have Norman castles or do you have French castles? Or do you have a fortified castle with walls, or are you doing like a palais or a manor house? Okay, so each just things to think about as you're building your world and building your culture, and what your characters are going to be wearing and interacting and how they sound in your world. Okay. Yeah, so we went a little long. I hope you're still here. Thank you for getting to the end. If you did, take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.